Your station, 101 FM, with Saturday Sports Scene.
Good morning and welcome to Sports Scene for another week. A big day here in the world of sport in Australia. Certainly a big day for us here at Sports Scene. A grand final edition of the show. We will get into everything, but it'll be a big feature on the AFL Grand Final. Take the whole second hour, take our time, get into everything. We'll also talk the Intrust Super Cup Grand Final, which is, of course, tomorrow afternoon, the NRL Preliminary Final. So, big show planned here today. Joining me to talk about it all, the founding father of Sports Scene, Mr. Darren Madigan. Darren, welcome to the show, mate.
Goodness me, Kevin. Don't you just love this time of year? Can't you smell it? Grass freshly cut. It's just that little bit greener, and there's all sorts of wonderful things going on around the place. And before I forget, congratulations to the Australians beating the Kiwis during the week in the America's Cup. Just an amazing thing to watch. John Bertrand said during the week that those boats, if you wonder why they look so fast, they were actually going 3 times the wind speed. It blew me away watching it. I haven't given a damn about the America's Cup since about 1987, since we lost the defence. But I tell you what, it was exciting to watch this time round. But I think, Kevin, it might have to go down as one of the greatest chokes in sporting history.
Oh, mate, it is right up there. As you say, mate, they started, the American team, they started a couple behind, like below zero, mate. And even then, they came back from 8-1 down.
It's terrible, isn't it? They started on -2 because of an infraction back in a tournament in 2012 leading up to the event. And they had to carry that -2 into this. So they had to actually win 11 races to win, whereas New Zealand only had to win 9. And at one stage it was 8-1 in favour of New Zealand, and well, we know what happened, don't we? An Australian captain with an Australian strategist and 3 other crew members knocked off the Kiwis. It was, pretty special.
Unbelievable stuff. Also joining us on the show this morning from the AFL Queensland Hall of Fame and from the Southport Sharks, Mr. Craig Crowley. Craig, welcome back, mate.
How are you, mate?
How good is this day, mate? As an AFL supporter, a man like yourself, how big is this day?
Been terrific. The wife's done all the shopping, the sitting back, the recliner's ready to go. I think she's sitting on it now warming it up for me. So, yeah, a real big day for the couch potatoes.
That certainly is, mate. Also joining us on the show from the East Tigers, Mr. Ethan James. Ethan, welcome to the show, mate.
Morning, Kev. Good to be here again.
Good to have you, mate. It's a massive show for all the AFL fans out there, but for the East Tigers fans as well, like yourself, mate. A massive weekend.
Yeah, hopefully there's plenty of Tigers fans tuning in, but we've got the Intrust Super Cup Grand Final tomorrow against Mackay out there at Ipswich, so if you want to see some good footy, head on out there.
Absolutely. East Tigers got sides in all 3 grades, so it's to be a massive day for them. As we say, a big show planned for us today. Joining us on the line in the second hour of the show, when we talk some AFL, we'll get the Brisbane Lions reserve grade team. They went on, the flag in the NEAFL Northern Conference, and they went on and they won the cross-conference grand final. Joining us on the line to talk about that, mate, Clint Watts, the assistant coach from the side.
Yeah, Clint's next player with the Southport Footy Club, and he's just gone on from bigger and better things in his role as a coaching. Unfortunately, because of work commitments, can't go into a senior coaching job, but he's doing really, really good things as an assistant with the Lions. So, yeah, he'll be interesting to talk to.
Absolutely. He will. Also joining us on the line in the first hour of the show, we've got Craig Ingebrigtsen, the coach of the East Tigers. He's been on the show a couple times before. We'll also have Kim Williams, coach of the Mackay Cutters. So we've got coaches of both the Intrust Super Cup Grand Final teams there joining us on the show today. It's going to be a massive show. We're going to get right into everything. We'll start with last night's result, the preliminary final in the NRL. Manly getting up 30-20 over the Rabbitohs at ANZ Stadium. They trailed 14-0 early in that game, but an outstanding comeback from Manly to come back and win this game. They're going to be hard to beat next week, Ethan.
Yeah, it was something special for Manly, wasn't it? I mean, considering the matches that they've had to play through the final series, they had that exceptionally tough match against the Roosters in the first week. They backed up against the Sharks. It looked like they were out on their feet, but they found a way to get through that and then, come from behind against, a team like Souths with that lead at half-time. Something pretty special there from Manly.
Souths were flying too. In that first 15, 20 minutes or so, that's as good as they played all season. They were looking fantastic, and you thought it was their time. It sort of felt like it, but Manly were having none of that, and just as they've done so many times in the past, just scrapped their way back into it and overran them in the end. That second half performance then was magnificent. Manly thoroughly deserve this. Another grand final appearance, their 4th in 7 years. Incredible stuff. Darren Madigan, before we launch into the world of rugby league world and the AFL world, as we will for the rest of the show, mate, bring us up to date with the news surrounding the world of sport.
Yeah, the NRL has given the Sydney Roosters the all clear over the allegations of the HGH, or human growth hormone, detected in some of its players. So I guess they'll be breathing a big sigh of relief there. They'll do everything in their power, they say, to uncover how the results of the blood tests found their way into the hands of an organised crime figure. So, yes, we wait with bated breath to see what happens there. The NRL Chief Executive Dave Smith has confirmed the Integrity Unit had been made aware of the test results earlier this year, as had ASADA. Should also point out too, excuse me, that James Horwill returns for the clash against the Springboks. That will be tomorrow morning, 1 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. So it's going to be a big, big weekend in front of the telly, and playing over there in the shadow of a Cradle Mountain in Cape Town. So I think we haven't won there in, 30 years or something, or some crazy figure anyway. It's been quite a while. And before I forget, while I've still got it here, the Bureau of Meteorology, Melbourne's forecast today for the grand final. Partly cloudy, scattered showers developing this morning, contracting to southern and eastern suburbs in the early afternoon, then clearing during the late arvo. Winds north to northwesterly, 30 to 40 k's, tending west to southwesterly, 40 to 60 kilometres in the morning, then easing to about 30 kilometres late in the afternoon. So it'll be interesting to see how that big bowl at the MCG handles. It tends to normally be a bit swirly. Chance of rain's about 60% and about a couple of millimetres. So here's hoping that we miss all of that and we have a rain-free grand final. Taking a look at the tennis, Malaysian Open, Kuala Lumpur. It's an ATP 250 event. In fact, we've got 2 of them on this weekend in Asia. The Malaysian event, the quarterfinalists all through to their semi-finals are Sousa, Stan Wawrinka, Julian Benneteau and Egan Melcher through there. And Sousa had a great win over David Ferrer, 6-2, 7-6. And in Thailand, through to the semi-finals, Raonic, Thomas Burditch, Richard Gasquet and also Gilles Simon will be getting through there as well. As far as the girls are concerned, in Tokyo, the Pacific Open, Petra Kvitova, big win over Venus Williams in 7-6 in the third, and she will be playing Angelique Kerber, who defeated Caroline Wozniacki. In China, we have Jovanovski from Serbia will be through to the final against Shuai Zhang, so that takes care of the tennis this morning. As far as the golf is concerned, last weekend we saw the final tournament for this season, and the player who won that event ended up walking away with $11.144 million. Well, another man who knows all about money, Tiger Woods, was voted PGA Tour Player of the Year for a record 11th time, and that's 11 times in 16 tour starts this year. He won 5 times. The 10th time in his career he's put 5 or more victories into a season. And we can't let this one go, Kevin. Shane Warne, playing the old course at St Andrews in a Pro-Am during the week, the Dunhill Links Championship Pro-Am. He went out and knocked off a 71 off the stick, 1 under par, at the home of golf. And you don't think you'd dine on that for the rest of your life, eh? As far as cricket is concerned, the Ryobi Cup, the domestic one-day tournament, big changes for that this year. It will be played as a standalone tournament at the start of the summer, which is this weekend, and that leaves space for only about 3 rounds of Sheffield Shield cricket before the first Ashes test. The first match is tomorrow, New South Wales playing Tasmania in Sydney, so I'm sure there's a few noses bent out of joint at the various cricket associations around the country. As far as the other cricket stuff going on at the moment, we have the Champions League T20 event going on over in India at the moment, and as far as the Australian teams are concerned in Group A and Group B, the Perth Scorchers are sitting right at the bottom of the ladder with the Rajasthan Royals leading that group, and in Group B the Super Kings lead that group with the Brisbane Heat right down the bottom, unfortunately. As we mentioned at the top of the show, Team Oracle USA, Larry Ellison, I think, put somewhere in the region, they reckon he's put somewhere in the region of something like 500 million over the last 10 years trying to win this event, and That's a lot of money to win a boat race. But anyway, the boat was built in New Zealand, as far as I know. We had an Australian captain, Australian strategist, and 3 more crew members. But they ended up getting through to beat New Zealand in one of the great comebacks of all time, as we've mentioned, and probably one of the greatest chokes of all time from our Kiwi brothers and sisters. Baseball, Major League Baseball, this weekend is the last of your regular season. We start postseason next week, and we will start covering that from next week as we get close to the World Series. I know, Kevin, you're a big fan of the baseball side of things, so we'll have a bit of fun with that. Formula One, a big meeting during the week with the World Motorsport Council in Dubrovnik in Croatia. This is huge. A lot of big decisions had to be made for World Motorsport here, and thankfully Formula One finally has a document by which the sport will actually be run. The Concord Agreement for the period 2013-2020 has come into force, and the documents have all been signed and everything finally. They also released a provisional calendar for 2014. It's a 22-race Grand Prix calendar. New Jersey is officially back on it, the calendar for 2014, and we're not going to have 22 races. We'll probably have 20 to 21 as a couple of them drop off as well. Korea and Mexico have actually been put in there as well. As far as some interesting news overnight, Rubens Barrichello has emerged as a shock contender to drive for Sauber, according to GrandPrix.com. And I think you know what I think of GrandPrix.com. It's a very, very reputable magazine and also online thing to get your news from. He usually has his sources pretty much on the money with this stuff. But former Ferrari and Honda driver Barrichello is also a winner of 11 Grand Prix, and he's burst back into contention with that 2014 seat because apparently he's bringing 2-digit million sum in personal sponsorship with him. So this could actually be a serious deal. He reckons the only training he's going to have to do is on his neck, because he's kept pretty fit, but as you might know, Grand Prix drivers really have a real huge workload on their necks. Once he gets that right, he reckons he could drive a car tomorrow. The F1 drivers could get a 6th engine for next year. The rules are all changing next year. We go to a V6 1.6 litre turbocharged engine, and the drivers only get 5 engines. Well, they're talking about giving them a 6th for next year, so there's going to be a lot of arguing back and forth. But how does it affect people? Well, their engine bills are already doubling under this new V6 regime that's coming in, and Auto Motor and Sport claims that just one extra engine will cost them an extra €2 million. Unbelievable. And they'll probably need another engine, perhaps 2, for the private testing in 2014. They reckon every kilometre testing now costs us €800. I mean, it's just an amazing thing to work out the figures in this most expensive of sports. Ferrari have been testing during the week at Barcelona with a 2011 car, and they've been testing Pirelli's 2014 tyres. So no doubt somebody's going to jump up and down about that at some stage, even if there's no problems, rightly or wrongly. Now, Pirelli will be the tyre supplier for next year, but it's been made pretty clear after that we're looking at the FIA putting a tender out for tyres once again. So I'm sure Pirelli are really happy about that, and I think Michelin have expressed interest in coming back into the sport. As far as motorsport is concerned, we've just had some things happening this morning as far as qualifying is concerned. As far as the NASCAR, Dover in Delaware, it's a 1-mile oval. Dale Earnhardt Jr. has taken provisional pole from chase leader Matt Kenseth, and I can tell you that Marcus Ambrose is sitting in 24th spot at the moment there for the race tomorrow. As far as the standings are concerned, after 3 races in the chase, Matt Kenseth leading from Kyle Busch, Jimmy Johnson and Carl Edwards. Jeff Gordon sitting down in 8th spot, and the overall year, Marcus Ambrose sitting in 22nd. We're in Aragon in Spain for the MotoGP. Marc Marquez, after second practice, is quickest from Stefan Bradl, Dani Pedrosa and Jorge Lorenzo. The standings for the World Championship at the moment are Marc Marquez in his very first year in the category, leading nicely from Jorge Lorenzo, Dani Pedrosa and Valentino Rossi, who's having a bit of an Indian summer at the moment. World Rally Championship was announced during the week as well, the calendar for next year. The big news for us here in Australia, Rally Australia has been an every 2-year event for some time now. Next year we're going ahead with every year. So 14th of September next year, following up from this year's event, we will have a Rally Australia. So that's really big news. Hopefully they'll get the marketing and everything right, because I know Lee and I both feel that they've really let that down. As far as European football is concerned, the matches to worry about this week coming on, they'll be shown on SBS on Wednesday and Thursday morning. Steaua Bucharest is playing Chelsea, Arsenal against Napoli, Borussia Dortmund against Marseille, FC Porto against Atletico Madrid, Ajax Amsterdam against AC Milan. This is a massive match. Celtic playing Barcelona at 4:45 on Wednesday morning, and I can tell you, if you want to see an atmosphere at a football ground, watch this game, the start of this game, because last year was one of the most amazing things seen anywhere in the world last year. They painted the entire stadium green. As far as Thursday morning is concerned, we have Shakhtar Donetsk playing Man United, Juventus playing Galatasaray, Real Madrid playing FC Copenhagen, Paris Saint-Germain playing Benfica, and the televised game will be Manchester City playing Bayern Munich. As far as surfing goes, during the week, the men have just started a tournament in the southwest of France, but in Cabreton in France during the week, the girls did their event, and Sally Fitzgibbons won the Roxy Pro there against fellow Australian Tyler Wright. In netball, England and South Africa are playing a test series at the moment. England have already won the first 2 matches of the 3-match series, so they've won the series. Game 1 was won 49-38, Game 2 51-33, and as we speak, I think they're probably out on court with Game 3. We should mention too, before we finish up, the WNBL Logan Thunder are waiting for judgment on their future this weekend. The Basketball Australia has released a statement this morning, basically saying they're hoping to try and put something together across the weekend. The bottom line was they needed about $150,000 by 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon. They had about 100 raised on social media and everything by Thursday, and the last figure that I saw for the final 50 was around about 27,000. They haven't given any more figures since then, so we've got our fingers crossed for our Logan Thunder, and hopefully Basketball Australia will stick by them. Kevin?
Hopefully, mate. Thanks for that. We'll take a break here on SportsScene. When we come back, Craig Ingebrigtsen from the East Tigers will be on the phone for the Stay With Us. Grand final, which is tomorrow afternoon out at North Ipswich Reserve. Craig Ingebrigtsen from the East Tigers. He's the coach of the side. Mate, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Lovely to be back.
Mate, it's great to have you back on the show. And, of course, tomorrow, a big afternoon for the East Tigers, mate. Before we get into exactly what's going on in your game in the first grade grand final, of course, East Tigers, you've got sides in all 3 grades tomorrow afternoon. The club hasn't won a premiership since 1991. How special is this day going to be for the club?
It's outstanding. It's a great achievement for all the players and the administration staff and everyone involved in our organisation. It's just a credit to them all, to be honest with you, mate. And we're very proud of our brand, and hopefully we go out there and do our brand justice tomorrow.
Absolutely, mate. Well, tell us about the environment at the club that has allowed this success, because it doesn't happen by accident for all 3 grades to end up there. Tell us about the club and I guess the structures of that club that allows this success to happen this year.
Yeah, no, it's all about just working hard as a group, and we've all worked hard as a group, and we're getting rewarded for that. I think all of us have really put in a major effort, and it's just a cultural change, really. To be honest with you, we've got a real strong work ethic. We work hard on some core values that we put in place, and it's all come to fruition for us.
It's wonderful, mate. Well, let's talk about. It's been a couple of weeks since we last had you on the show. Been on the show a couple of times. Since then, you went up north for that qualifying final against the Northern Pride, which you guys won. You've had the week off since then, coming into the grand final. First of all, mate, tell us about that win up over the Northern Pride, the side that were the minor premiers, they're the benchmark all season. You went up there on their turf and you beat them in that qualifying final. What did you make of your side's performance and I guess the form that your side is bringing into the grand final tomorrow afternoon?
First of all, I'll speak to you every week if we can play like that. But we went up there with a really good mindset, and we just focused on us. And they're Northern Pride were the best side all year, and they've gone out in straight sets, and a lot of that's because of what we did to them up there in the heat that day. And we moved them around, and we went up there with a really solid game plan of moving them around and making them actually have to make a couple of different efforts, and it was something we worked on in our video prep, and it worked really well for us. So that was an amazing effort, and that was done on a lot of guts and determination too. We defended our try line for a lot. I think they had 48 usages in our 20, and we only had 18 in there. So that's testament to our defence on the day up there.
Yeah, Craig. In regards to Northern Pride, look, they were probably the benchmark all year, and going into probably last week's game, you probably had a tendency to probably watch their players a little bit more and prep a little bit harder for them, thinking they might get through, probably being favourites. Did you really have a mindset where you thought, well, I've got to sort of focus on them a little bit more than the other? I know there was a chance you could play the other, but being the top side all year, do you think you had to focus a little bit more on them?
Yeah, definitely. That's the smartest question I've been asked all week, because that's exactly right. I went to that game last week thinking, geez, the Pride will bounce back here, and they'll bounce back nice and aggressively. So it was. I went there intently watching what they were doing and what they were going to come up with. So we've obviously had to change our mindset and work on what Mackay have got now. And Mackay are a great footy side, and they're coached really well. They're structurally very sound. They're aggressive, so we've sort of had to move on to what they're all about.
Plan B.
Yeah, that's it. And just looking at Mackay ahead of the grand final, Craig, what have you targeted as their strengths and the areas of their sort of game plan that'll pose the most threat to the Tigers?
As long as this show doesn't go to Mackay, I'm right. Look, Mackay have got Jason Tamalara on the edge, who's been probably in the last month the form player in the NRL. I mean, he's a big, dangerous human being. So there's no rocket science there that we want to make him make repeat efforts. We want to make sure that he's making efforts early in the game where when he's not that fresh and he can actually get at us. So look, there'll be a lot of ball movement. We'll be trying to get at their edges. Their halves are vulnerable defensively. We believe so. We want to have a crack at those blokes and make sure that we get plenty of numbers at them, and they've got to make decisions.
Something else that could perhaps be working in your favour there tomorrow afternoon, mate. Of course, with Mackay having to travel as far as they do, perhaps the supporter base isn't there as strongly as it will be for you guys, especially, as we said before, all three grades in the grand final. You haven't won the premiership in a long, long time. Are you expecting to see, a sea of orange and black out there tomorrow afternoon at North Ipswich?
Yeah, we are. Look, our media contingent at our club has done a great job in sort of, getting the game up like that. And we've sold an immense amount of shirts and apparel this week at the club. I know we've sold a lot of tickets at the club. So we're expecting a really big support out there for us. And, as a club, that's so good to see. And you couldn't ask for anything better. We just got to go and get our job done. And, I'm trying to shield the boys from that a lot. I'm trying to keep them away from as much media stuff as possible and really focus on our job because, we've got a chance of creating some history tomorrow.
You're listening to Sports Scene here on 101 FM. It's 8:30. Next fresh news update coming up at the top of the hour. Kevin Braysher, Darren Madigan, Ethan James, Craig Crowley, all here with you on the phone with us. He's the coach of the East Tigers, Craig Ingebrigtsen. They're talking about the Intrust Super Cup Grand Final coming up tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, Craig, you touched on the grand final build-up there. I was with you guys on Wednesday. You had the press conference ahead of the big match, and then a sportsman's lunch afterwards. I know people sort of say, treat the grand final build-up and everything as just another week, just another match of footy, but there's so much else going on the periphery as well. How do you sort of handle that? And it's a bit different to just a regular week, isn't it?
Yeah, it is hard. Like I came home, I think it was Thursday night, and I actually said to my wife, I'm actually spent, because it does take a lot out of you. There's so much to do in the week. But my job is to make sure that the players haven't played their game in their head, and they're really focusing on the job ahead. And we've got our last session today, which I'm really looking forward to, and I know that we'll be really just ticking all the boxes this afternoon to get finalised.
Craig,
sorry, Darren.
Craig, Darren here, mate. How do you handle the week off when you've got a break? I know it's a classic question everyone gets asked when you go straight through to a granny. But, how do you handle that week? What do you do with the players in terms of the physical training side of things? Or would you have actually preferred to have kept the momentum going and played?
Yeah, Darren, to be honest with you, mate, it hasn't come at a bad time for us. We had two plane trips, one to Mackay, and we had 3 out of 4 weeks on the road. in aeroplanes, and then we had a couple of really hard trips to Mackay and Cairns where it took a fair bit out of us. So I really freshened them up a little bit early last week. We did a lot of conditioning games and so on, just to freshen the body and the mind up. And then we got back into business late in the week. Our Thursday session was pretty hectic, and our Sunday session was pretty full on. We trained before our Colts played last Sunday, and we got nice and physical. So, probably more of a mindset of keeping them fresh in the head and not letting them worry about too much. And I actually tried to get them away from the game on Sunday. I asked most of them to go home and don't worry about what's happening here because we can't control that. So that's what we did.
Mate, another, I guess, an advantage of having the week off there is, freshening up from injuries and little things like that. There's a few big ins for your lineup. Strong lineup you guys have named. Guys, Liam McDonald, Dane Hogan, Lagi Setu, all coming back into the side, mate. Tell us about the boost that those players will give to the side tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, it was a really tough position I was in, guys, but I'm really happy to have those three back. Liam McDonald played in the grand final in 2008 as a 21-year-old front rower for Souths in a major upset up at Ipswich. He's play the ball speed, he's ruck work, he fills space around the ruck. He does everything that you want him to do. He's the old style front rower, and he's just a classic character in our group. So, we're so happy to have him back. And you can see the vibes lifted already this week with Liam being back. Dane Hogan's we chased Dane Hogan very hard in the off-season. I'd known him previously for coaching him at Redcliffe. He's just the cornerstone to our pack. I mean, tomorrow's going to be really physical. It's going to be a bit of a war out there tomorrow, and we know they're coming after us through the middle. And no other bloke I'd want in our middle than Dane Hogan, because he doesn't care who you are or what you've done. He's going to stand up to you. That's what we love having him back. And Langy Setu, he's played NRL. He's probably played 30 or 40 NRL games. He's experienced. He's got great feet at the line. So the three of those make a massive difference to our footy side.
Mate, you mentioned the potential of, could be a bit of a war tomorrow afternoon. A bit of talk up north about perhaps a bit of a soft underbelly in the east side. Do you have a response to that?
Oh yeah, look, everyone says that about us, and we just want them to bring it on. If they want to talk like that, well, they got to walk the talk. So we're quite happy to accommodate them through our middle. We're nice and tough through there. So we're a big pack, and we've got no dramas if they want to come through there.
Well, mate, let's talk about the Mackay side there, mate. You beat them a couple of weeks back, first week of the semi-finals, 31-18. You expecting anything different out of their side this time around, or is it very much business as usual for you guys, and you approach this game similar to the way you did that one?
No, look, they've got a few little changes to the way they're playing. I mean, we know that Matt Minto's their go-to man. Everything comes off Matt. Matty played at East a couple of years ago, so we know Matt very well. He's a good footballer. They're at the moment, they're saying he's the form half of the comp. Well, we believe ours is, and Cody Walker, but everyone's entitled to their opinion. So, we know what Matty brings. Matty's got a real good kick game. You just can't allow him time. So, we've got to cut his time down and make sure that he's got numbers at him all the time. And when he defends, we've got to make sure that we're really chewing up his gas so he's not that effective in attack.
Well, we'll let you go in a minute, mate, but a couple more for you. Just we mentioned those the big ins of the guys, Liam McDonald, Dane Hogan, Lagi Setu, all coming back into the side. That we've mentioned Cody Walker before on the show, but there are some other players in your side that you're looking forward to seeing them go out there tomorrow afternoon, hopefully coming up with a big game for you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Benny Hampton at fullback, he's probably the quickest player in the competition. So looking at Benny lighting it up. Tommy Butterfield, he's been the buy of the year. He's been outstanding for our club. Those sort of guys. Grant Geese is an absolute competitor who, there's no doubt that young man's going to play NRL at some stage in his career. So, look, there's plenty of players across our group who I'm really looking forward to playing on the big stage. But more importantly, I just, I want our supporters to be proud of our side tomorrow, and I know we'll go out and do a great job for them and make them proud of us.
And lastly, mate, what's the last thing you tell the boys before they run out for the grand final tomorrow afternoon?
Look, I'm not going to fill it full of emotion tomorrow. I'm just going to, leave it to them. And really, I just want to talk to them about, the pride they have in their jersey and their club. It's our 80th year, and it's a big occasion. But let's just keep it simple and keep doing what we're good at, because that's what we've done for the last, probably 8 to 10 weeks. We've been really good. We've built great momentum. So just looking forward to staying tough together, which we've done in the last month or so.
Well, mate, we wish you the best of luck. The game tomorrow afternoon will be live on Channel 9. You can also listen in on ABC Radio Grandstand. Kickoff is at 3:50pm out at North Ipswich Reserve, the Intrust Super Cup Grand Final. The East Tigers up against the Mackay Cutters. Craig Ingebrigtsen, coach of the East Tigers, thank you very much for being with us this morning.
It's always a pleasure, guys, and every time we come in here we get some good luck. So hope we bring it again.
Well, we wish you the best of luck tomorrow, mate. Good luck. Thank you very much for being with us. We'll take a break here on SportzScene. Stay with us.
For the best musical memories from the 50s and the 60s, it's Ted's Memories. Saturdays from 4 p.m. and only on 101 FM.
101 FM.
You're listening to Saturday Sports Scene on 101 FM.
Welcome back to SportzScene here on 101 FM. Kevin Braysher, Darren Madigan, Ethan James, Craig Crowley, all here with you. We were just speaking to East Tigers coach Craig Ingebrigtsen there on the phone, just ahead of the Intrust Super Cup Grand Final, which is tomorrow afternoon up at North Ipswich Reserve. We will have Kim Williams on the show a little bit later on, but for now we're going to talk a little bit of NRL. Of course, the preliminary final last night between Manly and the Rabbitohs. The Rabbitohs came out fired up, 14-0 early in that one, but Manly, how tough is this footy team, Ethan? They can come back from that against a team as good as South Sydney, and they got 30 points in a row. They end up winning 30-20. An amazing performance from Manly and into another grand final.
Yeah, something pretty remarkable there from Manly. We touched on it at the start of the show, but they've had an exceptionally sort of, well, they're a gritty club, we all know that, but the way that they've played over the past 3 weeks in just the final series alone, the way their pack has sort of held it together, and they've got such class in the back line. Jamie Lyon's just playing. He's probably the inform back in the competition almost. Really, he's playing that well there at centre, and then you add in Brett Stewart, who came back from injury last night. It's just that extra bit of pace and extra bit of finishing ability, and he's a good ball player as well. So he added that extra element to their side, and they were a lot more dangerous.
Absolutely, mate. And look, yeah, it's similar. We talk a bit about Melbourne during the year and how they keep on keeping on and being such a strong side. Manly are exactly the same, mate. It was for years and years now. We go back to the 2007 grand final. It's really been a fixture. Manly are there or thereabouts the very last week of the competition. How does that club keep performing at the peak of their powers year after year?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I suppose a lot of clubs would be looking for the secret in terms of their consistency, but they're sort of almost a bit like Melbourne in the way they can sort of get the best out of players. Because you look at some of the guys in their pack, guys like Brenton Lawrence and Justin Horrow. Yeah, they were both fringe first graders at the Titans and the Eels respectively, and now they're fairly influential members of a grand final pack. So.
Yeah, it's when you have a winning culture. I mean, you've got a guy sitting there across from the panel there who knows all about winning cultures. I mean, Craig, you've got the answer to all this stuff. I mean, Southport have been doing this for 30 years.
Yeah, it's like the recipe for Coca-Cola, mate. It's tucked away really, really. Only a few people know about it, mate. So
secret
I can't
herbs
let
and
it
spices
out.
You'd tell me, but you'd have to kill me, right?
Hey, Ethan, while we're on that, how much did you do? We talk about the Storm, we talk about Manly. The thing that really pops its head up there is the experience they've had in finals football, and they'll probably to a certain extent the lack of finals football that the Rabbitohs have had. Do you reckon that played a big part in the result? Knowing that the game was always alive, it was never dead, so they could keep coming at them.
Yeah, I think just that never say die attitude that's there in that Manly team regardless. Like we saw Souths, even in their first week of finals footy, they sort of, they started really strongly, but they fell away towards the end. And Manly's just one of those consistent sides that'll just keep peppering until the opposition just, they just worn them down completely. And I think that's sort of what happened.
And the other thing to that too, mate, they relied so heavily on GI to continually play well. Was there too much emphasis on him and not allowing the rest of the team to play their footy? I know he was out injured for a while, so they did have their opportunity to play other areas of footy, but did they rely on him a little bit too much and didn't allow him to, play a overall team game?
No, I don't think that's the case. I think absolutely he's their main weapon and their go-to guy, but I think a lot of their game revolves, the most important part of their game comes from their forward pack and getting over the advantage line, and Isaac Luke coming out of dummy half there, getting forward. And they were doing that extremely well early in that game, and that's where they were making all their meters, and that's where they were looking most dangerous. What Manly did extremely well was to sort of, I guess, stem the flow and stop that onslaught from their massive forward pack. Manly's forward stood up to them and sort of started to win that battle in the middle. From there, that's where Manly won the arm wrestle. So, to me, I don't think it was a matter of... I thought Greg Inglis was very strong last night, particularly in defence in a lot of cases. It was just Manly's control in the middle, and I think it comes down... I think the embodiment of what you were talking about before and their ability to stay calm under pressure, the best embodiment of that is their halves combination in Sherry Evans and Kieran Foran. Just that they never looked rattled in that point when you're down by 14 points, and they still went out there and were able to produce more points and produce field position. Just an exceptional combination in the halves, those two.
Yeah, for sure. Especially in an age where coaches sort of split their halves and go, one right side, one left side player. I'm sure that's the case with those two as well, but they combine probably better than any other halves combination in the NRL. Like we saw some examples in the match against the Sharks where, he was four uncalled for a grubber and, Cherry Evans was there to put it straight through. But they just read each other's games so well, and it's really sort of refreshing to watch as a spectator.
What about South Sydney, mate? 2 years in a row they've gone down in the preliminary final. How much does it hurt them in what is, we talk about premiership windows. It's obviously a premiership window for them. They've got the side there. How much does it hurt that club to go to 2 prelims in a row and lose?
Yeah, I imagine they'd be hurting a fair bit right now because everyone was sort of expecting them to make it through to the grand final. But when you talk about premiership windows, I think the window's still definitely open for them. I mean, I don't think they're losing too many out of the squad. They're not an exceptionally aged squad, and when you look at the halves and Isaac Luke as well, they're all going to be better with another year of footy under their belt. Maguire's still building his side and the way they want to play, and I mean, the way they played this year, there's no reason why they can't sort of do that again next year. But as we've seen, it's hard to stay at the top of the tree in the NRL. I mean, Manly have done it, Melbourne have done it, but aside from that, not many clubs have sort of maintained their position at the top. So we'll have to wait and see.
I suppose so, mate. Look, I guess with last year's final, I don't want to call it an excuse, but you could always say, well, they were going good until Adam Reynolds hurt himself. They don't have any of that excuse this year. They were up, they were in the position to really dominate and put the foot on the throat. Manly just took it away from them.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, you get down to 4 sides at the very end of the competition. They're all really good footy sides, and there's just a few little things that, go one team's way in a match and don't go the other team's way that sort of, can result in a premiership as opposed to being knocked out in this week. So it's just those little things with Souths, but I think they'll still be strong next year as long as they can keep that sort of hunger and determination sort of in the side. All
right, let's talk about the other preliminary final now. This is one, of course, being played tonight. The Roosters up against the Knights. The Knights with that upset win over Melbourne. A lot of the reporting was shock horror that Newcastle went down there and got that win. We got one guy in the room who was pretty sure that was going to happen. Ethan tipped it. He got it. Mate, tell us why is Newcastle, why did you think they were going to win that game? What did you think of that win and how are they going to go tonight?
In regards to the tip, it was probably more of a case of the way Melbourne played the week before. I thought they were sort of flat. They looked a bit off their game. They were sort of chancing their hand in the wrong sort of manner. They were a bit flustered with the ball as well. So I think it was more a case of Melbourne sort of being a bit off. But yeah, Newcastle did a tremendous job. And we talk about sort of players playing above their potential. You look through their roster and their forward pack, and there's names in there that NRL sort of regular supporters would sort of not really recognise. They're definitely punching above their weight. And I reckon they're actually a fairly decent chance against Sydney tonight. Sorry.
Yeah, well, what about that, mate? Look, there's talk that Sonny Bill Williams has picked up a mystery virus and may not play. If they lose Sonny Bill Williams, how much does that bring Newcastle in even more? Oh,
massively, because he's arguably the most dangerous player on the field for the Roosters. And I think they've also lost Boyd Cordner as well to injury.
Yep.
So that puts Newcastle right in the match in terms of the forward battle. And then when you look at sort of the strike they have in the backs, Akilu Uwate on the wing, even the centres, Leilua, been playing some great footy. So I reckon they'll be right in this, Newcastle.
They got a really well balanced footy side there. A lot of very good players across that field. Like you said, that centre combination, Leilua and Gagai, has been terrific this year. Darius Boyd at the back, strong halves combination in Mullet and Roberts, Tyron Roberts, who have been outstanding the last couple of weeks, and a guy by the name of Danny Badiris there at hooker, playing out his career. Often we see sort of the fairy tale stories get thrown up. There's no doubt Danny Badiris is the potential fairy tale story this year, isn't he?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, considering what he's given to the game and the number of matches he's played for New South Wales and Australia, there's a fairy tale there, but they don't always come to fruition. But yeah, Newcastle. Another upset, maybe.
Since another one. What's that, Darren?
So, has anyone ever made the grand final from that far down before, from 7th?
Yeah, absolutely. Parramatta made it from 8th in 2009. The
from
Warriors
8th?
made it from that far down as well.
Oh, okay, from 8th. Jeez. Okay.
Yeah, that was the year Jared Hayne won the Dalian medal, and they went on that run. They finished 8th. They beat the Dragons in the first round of the finals. They went all the way to the grand final and lost to Melbourne.
David Milton over there.
Over here. That's what I do. All right, so how about a tip in this one, guys? The preliminary final. The Roosters up against the Knights. Ethan James, what's your tip?
I tipped them last week. I'm gonna stick with them again. I think the Knights are a big chance. I'm gonna stick with them. I don't know why, but may as well.
I'm gonna tip the Sonny Bill flew to be a smokescreen. I think he'll play, and I think the Roosters will win, and they'll go through to the grand final up against Manly. We'll leave it there, guys. We're going to go to the break. When we come back, we'll get Kim Williams, coach of the Mackay Cutters, on the line to talk a little bit more about the Intrust Super Cup grand final. Stay with us on SportzScene. Coach of the Mackay Cutters, they will be in the Intrust Super Cup grand final tomorrow afternoon, taking on the East Tigers. Kim Williams, welcome to the show, mate.
Yeah, thanks, guys. How are you going?
Very well, thanks, mate. Thank you very much for joining us. First of all, congratulations on making it through to tomorrow's grand final. You did it with a very impressive 20-6 win over the Northern Pride at Langlands Park last Sunday, mate. What were your thoughts on that game and the way your men performed?
Yeah, I thought we were very good. The second half in particular, I was very pleased, not just with the effort, but the way we went about it. I thought we controlled that game, and our kicking game and kick chase was excellent. They're two really important ingredients in these big games. Yeah, if we produce another display like that tomorrow, I think we're a very big chance.
Well, let's talk about it, mate. Like, you've been a very strong side all season, finishing up in second place, mate. The Cutters now through to the grand final. It's your first grand final for the Mackay Cutters, of course. How's the area responded to the success that the club has had this season?
Yeah, it's been great. It's just a real rugby league town here. Just love being back in the rugby league community after having 4 years in Melbourne. So, the feeling around town's great. There's real buzz here, a lot of businesses with, our colours up, and the media here have certainly jumped on board. They've been very supportive all year, but it's been just fantastic this week. So, our players get a lift from that, from seeing the support in the community, and just hoping that's a bit of an edge we get coming into our game tomorrow. Sure thing.
Well, you got all the support up north, mate, but of course, having to travel down here and having to go across there to Ipswich there, what sort of numbers are you expecting in terms of your supporter base for Mackay people making the trip down, or people in the nearby area? What are you expecting to see out there at Ipswich?
Yeah, I think last week when we played at Langlands Park, it just seemed everyone who wasn't, a die-hard Pride supporter got behind us, and I'm hoping that's the case again this week. We're the underdogs, and I'm just hoping, if people aren't dedicated East Tigers fans, that they'll swing our way there. And from the local community, there's been a really good response. Harvey World Travel here put on packages as soon as the game was over last week, and they've had a really good take-up. It looks like we'll have a couple of busfuls going from Brisbane straight to Ipswich, full of Mackay people who are flying down. And so that'll help, if we can get a nice little group there, all in the Mackay Cutters, and make a lot of noise. I think that'll be fantastic. But, just getting pretty well 2 busloads full going all that way is a good indication of the support here in the town.
Sure is, mate. Well, let's talk about the grand final at Ipswich, mate, of course, being moved from Suncorp Stadium. What are your thoughts on that? Instead of playing rather at Suncorp Stadium, playing, I guess, at a more regional ground like Ipswich?
Yeah, look, I think for the players, they're probably disappointed a little bit that they miss out on the experience of Suncorp. But, realistically, there might be a crowd of 5,000 or 6,000 out there, and they get lost in Suncorp in terms of creating an atmosphere. So, these big grounds in the suburbs, they usually generate a great atmosphere when they get a decent crowd in there, and I think that'll be the case on Sunday. And for the players, I think for a grand final they'd be willing to play anywhere. But look, Ipswich will be fine. There's a fair bit going on in the town over the weekend, so there should be a heap of people around, and just hope they generate a heap of noise.
And just quickly, and another one, mate, just you mentioned before, potentially going into this game as the underdogs. As we said at the top, mate, like finishing second this season in the regular season, it's been a really successful year for you guys. But in a lot of ways, you've been that team that's sort of been under the radar all season. Is that something that sort of worked to your advantage, and something that you'll be sort of hoping on for this weekend as well?
Yeah, we've definitely used it throughout the finals more than anything. We've had that siege mentality, and I've certainly played on it deliberately, and we'll continue to do that this week. You look at the odds, you look at the people tipping, throughout a lot of the Brisbane papers and on the websites, and these Tigers are the ones they're talking about. So, I just feel the pressure's on them. We can just go out and concentrate on what we need to do and not worry about anything outside of our group. And that's worked for us the last 2 weeks. So I'm very confident that that's just another motivating factor that we can use in our favour.
Darren, you're going to go say something?
Yeah, Kim, Darren Madigan here, mate.
Sorry.
Mate, I know you've been asked this quite a lot during the season. I'm sorry if it brings up bad memories, but Alex Alisala, mate, how much has the emotion of what happened early in the year with him passing, how much of that have you used?
Yeah, look, it's one of those things that we don't play on it, and the disrespectful to Alex family. We just kept bringing it up every week, but it's probably been mentioned 2 or 3 times since that the tragic day, and all the boys just know it's there. We know that it's a motivating factor for us. A few of the boys still write Alex's name on their wrist strapping or in their individual goal sheets. They often write him down as this one's for you or something along those lines. So it's really an individual thing. Each player will use it or choose not to, as they prefer. And, some of the players are obviously very close to him, and we've got no doubt that, this one's going to be for him. So the best way we can honour him is just by winning tomorrow, and his family will be there, and we're really pleased and, proud that they've pretty well become sort of, dedicated members of the Cutters, and we'd like to do them proud tomorrow. So it's another little thing that is just in the back of our minds, and hopefully, another thing that gives us an edge.
Fair enough. Now, tomorrow, Ipswich, you're basically looking at amberly temperatures. It's been forecast for 31 degrees out there. You can bet that's conservative. So we're getting to be a bit like North Queensland there in terms of temperature and humidity. How much of an impact do you think you'll be able to use that, given that you guys live and play in those sort of temperatures and humidity all the time? And how much will the interchange come into play?
Yeah, I think the interchange is a huge thing. I think that showed last week, and Pride probably had to make a few changes a bit earlier than they wanted to, and we knew that their interchange ran out with about 12 or 15 to go. So we still finish over the top of them. So for us, we feel as though we're the fittest team in the comp, and the tougher the game gets, it's better for us. So those temperatures and the predicted forecast for us is great. We can see that another thing in our favour, and if this game gets a bit of an attrition towards the end of the game, we just feel as though that suits us, and we'll finish over the top of them.
You're listening to Sports Scene here on 101 FM. 3 minutes to 9. Kevin Braysher, Darren Madigan, Craig Crowley, Ethan James, all here with you. Joining us on the line, head coach of the Mackay Cutters, Mr. Kim Williams, speaking to us ahead of the Intrust Super Cup Grand Final being played tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, g'day, Kim. Just looking at the Grand Final sort of player-wise, one bloke who's been getting a fair few headlines down here in southeast Queensland, bloke by the name of Jason Taumalolo, who got man of the match for you guys in the prelim final last week. Just tell us a little bit about what he brings to the side, and how you're planning to sort of use him on Sunday.
Sure. He's to me, he's the most devastating ball runner in the Intrust Super Cup, and he's probably not far off it in the NRL as well. He played 8 or 9 games for us throughout the season, and every time he came back, he gave us the same thing. He's just powerful ball running, and he gives the guys a lift just with his presence, and he's a great guy to have around too. He always comes back with a really good attitude, and there's never been any sort of kicking cans around because he's not in the NRL that week. He comes back and gives us 100%, and you got a guy of that ability, fully committed to your team and wanting to win a grand final. That's just something that lifts the rest of the team. You can see it on the field, at training, when he does something really good, the rest of the players respond to that. So we're very happy to have him. Look, tomorrow we'll target some of their weaker defenders with him, and the pleasing thing about him last week was his work rate in defence, which has probably been a criticism of him at times in the past. That you can just see he's fully committed to this, and he wants a grand final as much as any of our other guys in this squad, and I'm very happy to have him.
Just while we're on him, mate, you mentioned he played 8 or 9 games for you this season, sort of half NRL Intrust Super Cup. He's got all the physical gifts in the world, as you say. He's got speed, he's got size, strength, all the rest of it. What's that little bit extra that he needs in order to solidify himself as a week-to-week NRL player?
He's just got to get a few more years in him. We tend to forget he's only just turned 20. Seems to have been around for a few years, and he made his mark very early. So there's not many 19, 20-year-olds around who are consistently good week in, week out. It's just a maturity thing, and especially for forwards, I think they take a little bit longer to get that consistency in their game at the top level, and that's where he's at. Next year could be his absolute breakout year where he's just consistent every week, and in form you cannot refuse to pick him NRL level. So I'm hopeful for him that next year is that year for him, and just a little bit more mature, and like you say, he's got all the physical stuff. So 1 more year's experience, he'll be in an even better place.
Yeah, just on your side again. A lot of people call it sort of the spine through the middle, but the playmakers towards the end of the year, guys like Anthony Mitchell and also Matt Minto have been in great form for you guys. What's your thoughts on how they're playing and how they how their season has been?
Yeah, for my spine, you're talking there?
Sorry, what was that?
His spine.
The spine, yeah. Guys, Anthony Mitchell there at hooker and Matt Minto as well.
I think we've been pretty lucky in that respect where, although we get these Cowboys players back, for Ant Mitchell, who's obviously a hooker, we've had him regularly, so we've been able to build combinations around him. Our halves, Matt Minto, Dan Murphy, have both been pretty well there. Since about round 7, Dan Murphy came back from a knee reconstruction, and so since round 7, those two have been our halves combination every week, and Liam Taylor's been fantastic at fullback. So that consistency has been a key to our performance there, having those same 4 guys, and Jardine Babongi is the other one. I used him through the middle in a bit of a ball-playing role as well at times. It's a key to any side, and if you can avoid injury to those guys across the season and just have those combinations working smoothly, it's a big boost for any team. I just feel like they complement each other a fair bit too. Liam Taylor at the back has got a great skill set, and Dan Murphy's probably more solid type half, where Matt Minto's pretty flashy and does most of our ball playing and kicking. So they're a good foil for each other as well. And I just think it works at the moment and has done for the majority of the season, and it's something that just takes the pressure off a coach's mind when you've got those key positions sorted, and that's been the case for me this year.
Yeah, Kim, Craig here. Look, the thing we've spoken really a lot about this year is the amount of travel that's been involved. One of them by one of the teams down here, South Logan, in regards to going up there quite a bit for home games, and the question we've always kept popping up is the travel side of it and how taxing it is on the players. We know at times it's good because it's a good bonding opportunity, to get to know the guys, but week after week it starts to get a bit hard on the bodies and hard on the mind, probably more so than anything else. How has it affected you?
Yeah, I think throughout the season we've had a couple of periods where our form has been down and probably lost some games we felt we shouldn't have lost, and a couple of those have been on the road. I think it's very hard to keep a team up for the whole competition. 24 weeks for the finals, and we probably saw that with Northern Pride, who were just fantastic for the 24 round games, or 23 of them anyway, and then sort of lost their last one at home and then lost 2 finals. So they hit that sort of form slump that every team has. So they unfortunately hit it at the wrong time. For us, we had those down patches throughout the year, and I do believe that a couple of those were because of the travel and just that taxing 2-day away again from the family, and it's just I feel impossible to be up for every single game. So you get in the routine, you do your best you can on those away games, and all the hotels are comfortable and the flights are good, and it's as comfortable as can be. But in the end, it's a couple of days away from family, and it's all a bit mentally draining. I'd say at the moment we're up and we're probably peaking at the right time, and we've got through those down periods, and we feel pretty fresh. So it won't be a factor tomorrow, and we'll just try and use that travel out to our advantage and get a bit of team bonding. And that last bus trip out to Ipswich, I'm sure it'll probably be pretty quiet, but I think it'll be it won't hurt us at all tomorrow. It'll be fine.
Kim, the other thing I was just going to ask you then, you answer there was around pretty much travel and the way the draw and the fixtures went through the course of the game. So pretty much you would be saying, if you have your slump and it's because of travel, you'd like to get them pretty much early in the game. Would that factor in at all if you're having all your travelling games sort of earlier in the year, so when you do come to the back end of the season, you're actually at home, you're in your own bed and all that sort of stuff. Do you reckon that would be, a whole lot of clout?
That's a fair point. I probably haven't thought of it that way too much. And of course, you don't get your choice in the draw. It's, whatever you're told to travel, that's where you go. But for us, it worked out well this year, and we had bought one of Tweed Hedges' home games, and we bought it off them and played up here in Mackay, and that was the second or third last round. We had Country Week where we were meant to play North down in Brisbane, but that game was moved as part of the Country Week up to Airlie Beach here, so it was only an hour up the road. And Sunshine Coast game we bought off and we played out at Moranbah, which is, a 2-hour bus ride, but it's still better than getting on a plane and then a bus for a few hours. So that back half of the year was actually, I guess, manipulated by us a little bit to reduce the travel. And, I believe that might have worked because we've come through that back half of the season very well, and what I say, throughout the finals we felt pretty fresh, and probably certainly last 2 weeks we've performed that way. So not something I've really thought about, but I think you might have got something there because it has seemed to work for us.
Well, mate, we'll get a couple more questions for you quickly before we let you go, mate. We'll quickly just on the East Tigers, mate. They beat you a couple of weeks ago in the semi-finals, 31-18. What is it about their side? What are the strengths of that side that make them such a hard team to beat, and why are they going to be such a challenge tomorrow afternoon?
Yeah, they can put points on you really quickly. And the last 2 times we've played them, they've done that. With 26-0 at half-time in that semi-final. And the previous time we played them, I think we scored first, but then they put 4 tries on in very quick succession just before half-time. And that's probably the main danger, They get on the roll, they get their confidence up, they got some very good ball players in there, and they're big and strong across the paddock. So they get on that roll, and they're really hard team to beat. For us, we just need to start better. If we can stay with them in that first half, we're confident we can finish over the top of them, but the big challenge is staying with them, and our goal, is not to concede quick tries in succession off them. And if we can do that and control the game a lot better than we did when we played them last time, we'll be backing ourselves. We're quietly confident.
Lastly, mate, tell us why will Mackay win their first grand final tomorrow afternoon?
Look, we just feel to an extent things have fallen in place for us this season, and we had all our bad luck early in the year. So, we're a confident team and a really tight-knit group, and we've got a whole town behind us looking to make a bit of history. So, highly motivated team, very talented, and a lot of belief in themselves. I think that's the key, and I reckon we're in with a big show tomorrow. Like I say, anywhere near our best, and we reckon we can win it.
Well, we wish you the very best of luck with that tomorrow. The game is 3:50 p.m. live on Channel 9 if you want to watch it. It's on ABC Radio Grandstand if you want to listen in as well. The East Tigers up against the Mackay Cutters in the Intrust Super Cup Grand Final. Kim Williams, thank you very much for being with us this morning on SportzScene.
My pleasure, guys.
Thanks for having us, mate. We'll talk to you another time. We'll take a break here on SportzScene. We'll come back. We'll talk some AFL footy. Stay with us. Kevin Braysher, Darren Madigan, Craig Crowley, Ethan James, all here with you. Big thanks to Kim Williams, who was just on the show with us, and Craig Ingebrigtsen, who was also on the show a little bit earlier. Extensive talks about rugby league, the Intrust Super Cup, NRL there in the first hour. Now it's time to move into the world of Aussie rules football, the AFL, and we'll talk a bit of NEAFL first of all. And joining us on the line, he's a 6-time premiership player with the Southport Sharks. He's a Southport Hall of Famer. He's a Zane Taylor medalist, a Joe Grant medalist, and a 2-time premiership assistant coach at the Brisbane Lions. Clint Watts, welcome to the show.
G'day, lads. Thanks for having me.
No worries, mate. It's an absolute pleasure. We'll start with that NEAFL Grand Final last week. The Brisbane Lions up against the Sydney Swans. You got away with the win there, 81-73, mate. Tell us about that game.
Yeah, it's an interesting game, the second Grand Final. Trying to get your lads up. Obviously having the Northern Conference Grand Final the week before. So we didn't sort of field the same team as we did in the game against Aspley. We sent a few guys away on their break, so we had to bring in a couple more academy kids from the Brisbane Lions. The Swans, still being in the AFL finals, had a fair bit to play for as well. So there was quite a few academy players amongst both teams, but a good crowd turned out, and we're fortunate enough to get the win against the very plucky Sydney Swans.
Well, we've been talking to quite a few different NEFL coaches over the last few weeks. Johnny Blair on last week, and sort of the vibe we got from them in terms of this second grand final is it probably, with all due respect to it, probably wasn't taken as much seriously as the first one. That's the flag that everyone in this competition strives for. How did you guys approach this second grand final there against Sydney?
We approached it very seriously as far as it gives our guys another opportunity to show their wares. As you probably know, a few of the guys were told, they were delisted early in the week. I think 3 out of the 4 chose to play. It gives them another opportunity to put their best foot forward. I know there was a couple of GWS guys. Leon Cameron was actually at the game, so there was still quite a bit to play for those guys. Look, at the end of the day, silverware is silverware. You're out there to give your all. It's a grand final. You don't get the opportunities to play in grand final all the time. So we're absolutely serious about it. Especially playing against another AFL team. We were very keen to get out there and get the job done and finish what was a really good season for the footy club.
Yeah, the other thing about that, Clint, is probably because you did have the opportunity to showcase a lot more of the academy kids, it gives them opportunity as well, not just so necessarily the guys that have been delisted or even players that might be, you don't know in the AFL market or might get traded at some stage or another. So it's a great opportunity for the kids to show their wares as well as the Sydney Blokes to show their wares in the way of their academy kids.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had a great time with the academy. We've put a hell of a lot of time into the boys since sort of last November, and I think there might have been 3 or 4 bottom ages. So being that they're still only 17, so they've got 1 year to go next year as far as their national championships being their big year. But so that's a feather in the academy's cap, and we rely heavily on those guys. We rely on them just to get out there and go to work, get the job done, and it really helps out our listed guys. So we, there's a lot of potential there. There's a lot of potential in both academies, being the Sydney Swans also. So those kids are fantastic, and they've been really good for us all year.
Yeah, what we can probably talk about now is probably the first grand final, the one we're probably, as a Southeast Queensland group, probably more concerned about. You've been an assistant under John Blair at Morningside, and it was great to see Aspley show their wares and making the grand final. Obviously, with your players that are playing with the Lions that are pretty much full-time footballers, do you think at the end of the day that was probably what showed out against Aspley? These kids were really good kids, played for Aspley. They shown a lot. Obviously, they had some experienced players in Shaney Stiller and Robbie Copeland, ex-AFL footballers. But the constant reassurance of setups and so on for an AFL-listed group, do you reckon that was the telling thing at the end?
Yeah, I think it definitely it definitely helped in the end, Jack. And also the fact that Aspley had a huge finals campaign as far as their 2 finals against Southport, but also before the finals they played their last round in Darwin. We just figured if we were in the game and if we could stay in the game as long as we could, would be a chance at the back end of the game with a bit more run and a bit more of that professional fitness, so to speak. So we know how good Aspley were, and we've said it countless times from the first time we played them, where they sort of bashed us up for a half, and we managed to grind out a win there. That they were the best team we'd played. Very well coached, great mix of experience and youth. So we figured that we just had to stick with them and stay in the game and hopefully get them at the back end.
No worries. You coach Lee Harding. Was this his first year at the helm?
Yes. First year up here after playing and coaching at Werribee after he finished at North Melbourne. He'd actually done the whole pre-season at Werribee, ready to go into the VFL season, and then this position popped up, and within, I think, a week or 10 days, he was up here coaching his first game in February, I think.
And how did he adapt to, obviously, the Queensland style of football? A little bit different. You're running on top of the ground a lot more, the weather, management of players, and so on and so forth. Obviously, you've got a good senior list of coaches, but in that regard, just adapting, how did he go? And obviously did well in the way of coaching, getting him through to a second premiership.
Yeah, I think he certainly he adapted quickly to the Queensland weather. I think he likes it a lot up here. He's sort of playing most of your footy in anywhere from 20 to 30 degrees and sunshine. Friday morning training is, magnificent up here in Brisbane compared to what it might be like out at Werribee. as far as coaching, it was fantastic. We try and keep a simple message at sort of reserve grade level. It's very full on, as you could imagine, at senior level. So when they come back, we try and create a good atmosphere for them, a little less sterile. But when it's time to go to work, Lee and the boys, certainly get the job done.
Probably the other thing what we have been speaking to the coaches about over the journey in the finals, we've been talking about the season that's passed, but obviously the season that's coming up. We've got new competition. Look, you'd have to be happy with all the blokes involved with the Lions. You'd have to be very happy with it, because I think you're going to be able to play full tilt sides. You'll be able to have probably more competitive games week in, week out, because hopefully the standard of the teams improve. And takes it up a notch. Well, that's what the want is. How do you see the new competition going?
It's a funny one asking me, being a patriotic Queensland football follower. As far as the new competition, I didn't think would go as hard as it did next year. As far as the clubs that sort of haven't managed to maintain their spot in the top flight. There's still obviously decisions to be made, I think, in regards to the three teams being Aspley, Southport and Redlands. Look, I think as far as football is concerned, the quality will go up. Southport will effectively become a Gold Coast rep side, so to speak. They'll represent the Labradors and Broadbeaches in some way. So they've sort of got to maintain an attachment there. We obviously know that you now only have a senior team, no reserve grade, and then it drops to 18. So effectively your lists are quite small, so that's where the eliteness comes from, it, and how you manage your players. Look, definitely the games, I think the Brisbane and the Suns and Swans and GWS, they want to play unrestricted numbers, but they want to have all their players playing together, so the quality of football will go up. But I sort of have my reservations about the teams that have managed to fall by the wayside a bit.
Yeah, and look, the obvious one is probably Morningside, who've been such a strong community-based club that's really dug deep, and the culture there, as you've spoken about many a times, is just so strong. And we spoke to Aaron Rodgers about it, and it was a decision of the club not to go at the cost of breaking their culture, which was a really strong point. So hopefully, the thing that I like about it, Clint, is the fact that everyone probably thinks the next competition will go down. I think it'll hold its own, and I think more importantly, it'll actually create more opportunities for younger players and the Southeast Queensland football growing. What do you think about that?
I think the quaffle, as it's going to be called, Jack, is going to be an absolutely fantastic competition, no doubt. It's going to be pure community football. I think you'll see the return of good crowds. I think some of you'd know more about this than me, but I think Sandgate and Wilston Grange, they were one of the original quaffle teams of past history. They get a chance back in that flight of football. So, and obviously I've spoken to a lot of Morningside people, and they get to keep their club together. They're a very strong community-based club, as you say, and they still get the opportunity to develop kids. And that's what Queensland footy's all about. Developing good kids, hopefully seeing more Queenslanders play AFL, and I definitely think that level of quaffle is still going to be able to produce that. So definitely better crowds, great standard of footy, and you're going to have to see Palm Beach and Wilston Grange, Service Paradise, those type of teams sort of come up, because I don't see the Morningsides and Labrador and Broadbeaches going too far backwards. So it's going to be an absolutely fantastic competition, no doubt.
Quaffle is a great name for a competition, I'll just say that much. Darren Madigan will bring you in, mate.
Yeah, no, it's just interesting listening to you guys talking. The thing that's running through my head at the moment is something I haven't thought about for a little while, but it's just, if we take a look at what's happened when the AFL expanded, if you look at the major leagues down south, people can still follow their team that they'd followed for 50, 60 years, unless you're a West Torrens fan or something like that. Queensland, we lost all of that, and we've lost it 2 or 3 times over. I'm just wondering what we need to do to try and get it back. I mean, when I was a kid growing up, I was a Western District supporter. I had a QAFL team that I followed as well as my VFL team. And I'm just wondering what it's going to take for us to get back to doing all of that again, because teams move around so much. We've changed the composition of structure of Queensland football so much in the past 2 decades that there doesn't seem to be any tradition left except for Morningside and Southport. And I'm just wondering what it takes to do that. I guess I'm throwing an open question out to both of you, Clint and Craig.
Well, I absolutely agree. I think, Jack, you went down to the rep game in South Australia, and you look at, I love the tradition of the sandful, and you see the West Adelaide supporters and all that there with their scarves and, following the footy. Some of them even have their own merchandise outlets. We struggle for publicity up here. The first grand final against Aspley, I don't know if you guys got the Sunday Mail, but that was as good a spread as we've seen in that paper for years up here. And full credit to Greg Davis at the Sunday Mail. I think we had two-page spreads about the grand final, which might have drew a few more through the gate. I think we ended up with about 4,000, which is might not sound much. They're going to probably get a few more than that at the rugby league tomorrow, but that's a great crowd for our competition up here, in the current state. I think local footy needs to jump into bed a bit more with the Lions and the Suns in maybe the way they fixture games, to give the local crowd every opportunity to get out and watch their teams, and trying to limit the clashes between local footy and the AFL that may or may not happen. And a lot of it's driven by the clubs themselves now, social networking, Twitter, Facebook, all that sort of stuff. When you don't have much newspaper publication, you only have your website, you rely heavily on people within your own club to publicise local footy, and unfortunately that's just the way it is now.
Yeah, I think too maybe that we just need to stop changing things all the time. I mean, it seems like every 2 or 3 years we have a major restructure of especially of grassroots football. And I'm just wondering whether it's time to just say, okay, let's decide this is the way it's going to be. This is how the pyramid works, and that's the way it's going to be. I mean, there's more tradition in country Queensland now in football than there is in southeast Queensland.
Yeah, well, as I've said to numerous people, we've had 10 name changes in 10 years, it seems.
Yeah.
Mm. The other thing about that, Clint, though, is the situation, and we can't help it. Obviously, the financial burden, which does hit a lot of clubs, and that's probably not a knee-jerk reaction, but a reaction from obviously the lack of publicity, the influx of 2 AFL sides in the southeast Queensland. There's a lot of reasons why. Obviously, NRL being so big in southeast Queensland's another. So it really does hurt grassroots football, and it's just sad in a way that Morningside didn't go on in this competition, because they would have been the only side left going through, and outside that we've been in since 1983. So that's only 30 years. It doesn't say a real lot for the stability of the group. So hopefully, as you said, with the quaffle competition coming back to us, you are going to bring back Wilson Grange. You are going to bring back Sandgate. We are going to get a bit of tradition back. So that's going to be great. But unfortunately, that's a situation where football has grown in the southeast Queensland sector. But the fact is, a lot of people want to go and see the best possible football, and that just happens to be AFL. When we were about, there was no AFL sides there, so they did actually patronise our games quite well.
Yeah, and for every AFL follower now in Queensland, they get a game of AFL pretty much every week, and they're only an hour apart, as far as you can have one at the Gabba one week and one at Metricon the next week, which is great. I mean, participation numbers in football is increased significantly. I think the Minister for Sport on Grosvenor Medal Night said we had numbers of around 60,000 participants in 2003, Jack, I think he said, and we're up to about 165,000 participants now. So no doubt when you go to parks and stuff around Queensland, there's more Sherrins getting kicked around than Stevens, and I don't mind that.
Look, we'll leave that part of the discussion there, guys. Clint, you're going to hang around and talk some AFL Grand Final with us?
For sure.
Awesome, mate. We'll look forward to it. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll get right into the AFL Grand Final. Stay with us here on SportzScene. Yes, welcome back to SportzScene here on 101 FM. Kevin Braysher, Ethan James, Craig Crowley, Darren Madigan, all here with you. Still on the line with the 6-time premiership winning player of the Southport Sharks, Southport Sharks Hall of Fame. He's also the assistant coach at the Brisbane Lions, 2-time premierships. That's Clint Watt, still on the phone with us. That song means it's time for us now to talk a little bit about the Hawthorn Footy Club, the first of the 2 sides we're going to talk about, who, of course, playing in the grand final this afternoon. Quick recap on the Hawks for this season. They finished the season in first. Last season, they were runners-up. This year, 19 wins, 3 losses. Those 3 losses, 2 of them came to Geelong, the other to Richmond, which I'm sure made our very own Mr. Darren Madigan very happy. The number 1 attacking team in the competition. They're 5th in defence. They've won 4 of their last 5, and in the semi-finals so far, they defeated Sydney 105-51, and they defeated Geelong last week 102-97. Guys, they've been the benchmark all year. They've been near unbeatable in a lot of ways. What makes them such a dominant team in this competition?
Sorry, Kev, just before we get into the analysis, can we have the team songs on every week? That was good.
It was a good little touch, wasn't it?
You haven't heard the Freo song yet, Ethan.
Looking forward to Freo.
You may not be saying so much in about 15-20 minutes time we get to Freo.
It's all right, we'll get back on.
Yes, Craig Crowley, I'll go to you first, mate. Hawthorn, why have they been so unbeatable this season in a lot of ways?
Oh, look, I think they're balanced, and I think their list on what they've worked at over the last couple of years, they've had an influx of good youngs, we've got speed, but they've, picked up players that have come from other clubs, which is really important, and the 2 significant ones there in their back half is Brian Lake and Gibson, who's been really, really significant to their structure. Obviously, their midfield's great, your forward line's potent. It's just well balanced, there's not a real lot of weak links in the whole group, and, they're very versatile, play many positions, but, look, I think Freo will be really competitive in the midfield, but I think around the ground, in the bookend situation, in the back half and in the forward line, Hawthorn have just looked so strong and competent. And if they're on song with their goal kicking and they get enough entries into their forward 50, they're going to be very, very hard to beat.
What do you think, Clint?
Yeah, I tend to agree with Jack. I think that this year Hawthorn have showed that even if Roughhead, Franklin and Rioli, as we saw last week, don't get a touch or only kick the 1 goal between them, they can still score. That's something that's far different from last year. They don't rely on those 3 key guys. Also agree with Jack. He didn't mention David Hale, who's another one who can push forward, who can become very dangerous. So Fremantle need to find the match up there. I think with rain and maybe potential hail, forecast for today, I think Fremantle's pressure might come into it a fair bit. But outside leg speed, Isaac Smith, they got Bruce, Gunston, they got a lot of players that can hit the scoreboard. So I think from last year to this year, they're not so reliant on the big 3 up front.
Darren, I'll ask you this one, mate. Last year they came into the grand final against Sydney Hawthorn. They were the favourites going into that game, coming up against a tough, scrappy team like Sydney. Similar situation for them this year coming into it. How much, I'm sure in pre-season it would have been a motivator and the rest of it, but how much is, I guess, the disappointment of losing last week going to be playing on their minds coming into this year's grand final?
Yeah, well, it's when you take a look at a similar situation. What was it, 2008? And they went in, they were kicking the ball all over the place, and they picked the one day of the year to actually get everything right. And for me, really, that's what will happen with Hawthorn today. I mean, if they get as we said before, if they kick straight, which has been their Achilles heel for 5 or 6 years now, if they kick straight, they're almost unbeatable. And with everybody on deck and fit and ready to go, which it looks like they are, they've got plenty up front to present to. I mean, I don't think they've got too much to worry about from previous weeks. I mean, the big loss to them probably was Richmond, and you just shrugged that off. I mean, that was probably an aberration. As much as I love my Tigers, it was more of an aberration. A bit of a wake-up call for them ahead of the finals. And, hey, they're in the grand final. I mean, they knocked off Geelong, and they've been waiting to do that for a long time.
Absolutely. Well, Craig, I want to ask you about Hawthorn's legacy, mate. We're talking in the first hour about Manly and being a superpower over the years in the NRL, Melbourne doing similar things. Hawthorn have been one of those sides that have been there or thereabouts at the end of the year for a long time now. They've only picked up the 1 flag in that time, though, back in 2008. How important to Hawthorn's legacy in this squad is it that they win this game?
Oh, look, that's what you play every year for, to get in this spot, regardless of where you stand. They are a powerhouse. When you look at probably now of dollars and cents, they're well and truly up there with the Collingwoods. Obviously, their membership is growing all the time, and even though they are a powerhouse, there was a lot of talk a few years back about them joining up with Melbourne, and because things weren't great. So they've come through that time, and now they are the side that everyone probably aspires to be. And as I said, their overall list is just so strong. They're developing young kids as we keep going. By a bloke who Jed Anderson missing out, but he's a product of the NEFL competition, so that's a great thing. He got a Rising Star Award during the course of the year, so all that sort of stuff is really promising. And you've got the youth coming through, because you'll probably see in years to come they'll slowly, they are top-ended in the way of age a little bit, so they'll start to peter out. But as long as they've I think the way they manage their list is really important, and they've used other clubs really significantly, as I touched on before. And, they are probably at this stage the side everyone wants to be.
Darren, same sort of question. With the legacy of Hawthorn, how important is the game today?
I think it's huge. I think the most important person it is for is Alistair Clarkson. I think if he loses today, he goes down as a guy who went out there against Geelong in 2008 and coached the game of his life, because that was very much the coach's win, that match. I mean, he just absolutely outthought Geelong in every way and played a beautiful game of human chess on the field. But if he wins today, it consolidates him in the modern era as a very, very good coach. If he loses today, he loses with a group of players who are extremely good, probably the best group of players in the comp. That's reflected in the ladder position, and his legacy won't be anywhere near as strong if he doesn't win this match today.
Well, we talk about that great group of players. Clint, I'll come to you for this one. In that group of players, probably the biggest star in that group is Buddy Franklin. Some speculation he may or may not be there next season. What are your thoughts on the pressure on Buddy Franklin on the grand final day today, and how you think he'll perform?
Is that to me, guys?
That's for you, Clint, yeah?
Yeah, look, it's huge. I mean, I just wonder what sort of draft picks Hawthorn will get when he's heading off to GWS next year. I mean, who knows if that's going to happen. I think it's hard to knock back that kind of money. But, look, the pressure's on all of them. I think I've always believed, and Jack would probably be the same, there's no individual heroics in grand finals. You just have to work harder for longer. There's 22 of the guys out there that just have to go to the edge of the cliff. And I don't think Buddy stands up any taller than any other. So, look, I think Buddy's just got to worry about competing in the forward 50. If he can hit the scoreboard, good and well, but he's going to be under immense pressure down there with the rest of them. So I'm not sure. As I said, he doesn't stand above any other of the 21 other guys he's out there with. But I also agree with what you're saying. I mean, if they don't win today with that group of players, one premiership in 5 years, I'm not sure where that leaves them going into next year, but that might just be historical. It might not mean anything at all. I suppose it's the now that counts.
I was going to say too, Craig and Clint, if you take a look at, it was either last week or 2 or 3 weeks ago, Hawthorn won a match with 11 goal kickers.
Yeah.
11 goal kickers. So, if that doesn't tell you we don't need Buddy desperately, we're a better team with him, but we can play without him. If that doesn't say it, I don't know what does.
Yeah, but that's modern footy now these days.
Yeah.
You don't hang out on someone kicking 6 goals every week. So it is, the more you can get out of that, it's just indicative of your running group and how they can overlap. And when you get halfback flankers kicking goal, that's really important to the group. But I think what we should talk about now is probably looking into the matchups. It's really important. Clinton, probably the biggest one we've got to talk about is, the namesake, Crowley. Ryan Crowley.
There you go.
My thoughts are a bit like you, Jack, doesn't he?
Hey?
Does he play a bit like you?
No, that was nice and fair, mate. You know that. The thought process of him going to Mitchell, my thought is that he'll go to Hodge. And the reason being, I think if he goes into the situation with Mitchell in the midfield, where Mitchell's such a good, strong inside ball getter, he can actually end up losing the ability that he's got as a tab, because I reckon Mitchell will win his own ball. Hence, I reckon Subban will probably go to Mitchell, who'll play that inside role, whereas Hodge, he's their barometer, I think. If he plays well across half-back, and, as you know, he normally does, he zones off extremely well, he's normally third man up, and he really catapults them going forward. I think Crowley's a better matchup there, because if they can stop that, they go a long way to getting, Pavlich more ball, as well as, the main and, even your Johnson in the forward line, or even, for that matter, Sandilands, if they go forward, that they're going to get uninterrupted use of the ball. Thoughts on that, Clint?
Yeah, I think my thought today is they'll just chuck Hodge straight in the middle for the first centre bounce, and they're going to have to match Fremantle's big midfielders, Barlow, Mzungu, Fife. They're all 6'2", 6'3" midfielders that can run. I think, my opinion is Hodge will start inside, and Crowley may go to an outside runner. I think they've got to stop Hawthorn's outside run. I'm along the lines, you might go to Smith, Isaac Smith out on the wing. They might just go head-to-head with Mitchell, or you might go to Birchall at half-back. The good thing about Crowley last week, the job he did on Kieran Jack, he kept Kieran Jack to 11 possessions and had 22 of his own and kicked a goal, I think. So he can be an offensive tagger. So my belief is that Hodge will go inside and he might take an outside runner in someone like Isaac Smith.
Yeah, just on the height in the midfield there, Craig was having a chat about it off air, and we came to the sort of conclusion that Fremantle have got a fairly a height advantage there, massive height advantage there in the midfield. How do you guys see that sort of playing out, and will the conditions affect that as well? Because the general consensus sort of seems to be that Freo will do better if it's sort of a wet track, but they've got the taller midfield. How does that sort of balance out there?
Clint?
I think when you think that the weather will keep Fremantle in the game, I think that might be in reference to their pressure. I think that the weather might just slow the game up. It'll be repeat bounce after bounce after bounce. Each team will make 80 to 100 tackles apiece, and it just becomes a war of attrition. Those 6'2", those big midfielders are still very good below the knees. They can win their own balls in wet or dry. So I can understand where you're going with that, but I think the weather might be in reference to Fremantle's extraordinary pressure that we saw last week against Sydney. The only thing now is we're playing on a bigger ground, not as long, but a wider ground. So those Fremantle players have to move further sideways to implement that press and that kind of pressure that we saw last week.
Well, we'll talk about Fremantle in a very short time, just after the next break. We'll take a quick look at the Hawks lineup in the back line. Ben Stratton, Brian Lake, Brent Guerra, halfback Shane Burgoyne, Josh Gibson, Grant Bruchel. In the setters, Isaac Smith, Sam Mitchell, Jordan Lewis, halfback Luke Bruce, Lance Buddy Franklin, Cyril Rioli. Front line, get this right, Paul Puopolo, I can't ever say that right. Jared Roughead, David Hale, the followers Max Bailey, Brad Sewell, and Luke Hodge. Interchange Liam Shells, Jack Godston, Bradley Hill, Jonathan Simpkin, who comes in, of course, for Whitecross, who was injured last week. Guys, who are some of the key performers in that lineup?
Well, I think once again it's in the forward line for Hawthorn. Obviously their key, their three talls, I suppose. But you spend too much focus on your talls, and then Cyril Rioli comes up, and maybe even some outside players that you probably don't. As you said, Clint, Isaac Smith, your Bruce, who are goal kickers. Gunston, who's a goal kicker. They can just all of a sudden pop up. So if you create too much of a focus on their big names, it's the little ones who will get under your guard.
We'll take a break here on SportzScene. We'll come back. We'll talk a little bit about the Freo Footy Club. Looking forward to that song. Stay with us here on SportzScene.
Bushfire season.
I have been looking forward to playing that song.
Oh, God, make it stop.
I knew it would bring plenty of fun to this show, that one. Darren Madigan, one of the best songs in all of sport, don't you think?
Freo are not allowed to win this year's grand final. Otherwise, we're never going to stop hearing it. I mean, how do you actually stand there in the rooms with your arms around your mate singing that song after you've won?
I'd say a couple of beers involved in the first place. It's involved in the writing process, just quietly. But
it's truly awful.
We're going to talk some footy because we're running out of time here on SportzScene. The Fremantle Dockers. Let's get into a bit of chat about these guys. They finished third this year. Last season they finished in seventh, I should say, eliminated in the second week of the finals. This year, 16 wins, 5 losses, 12th in attack, but number 1 in defence. They've also won 4 of their last 5. Semi-finals so far, 87-72 over Geelong in the first week, 99-74 last week over Sydney in the preliminary final. Darren Madigan, I'll come to you for this one first of all. They got a real chance at history today, the Dockers, going for their first flag, mate. Tell us what it'll mean to the area and I guess to the game in general for Freo to get up today.
Oh, look, it'll be huge. I actually watched a documentary during the week on the birth of the Fremantle Football Club and the history involved here, because you've got to remember, with the Adelaide Crows and the West Coast Eagles, they're composite teams made up by the league, basically. But if you take a look at Freo, it's sort of a composite history of 3 or 4 football clubs that had Fremantle in the name down through the years, and that whole Dockers thing goes back well over 100 years, and the history there is quite incredible. These people want it badly. These are the first of the expansion teams that hasn't won a premiership yet. So, and the other thing too is there's an element of redemption if they can manage to win, because a few years ago they were absolute raging favourites at the start of the season to win the flag, and they had a horror year. So, they'll be wanting this terribly badly. All the people have come across. The word is that they'll be playing in their white strip. Not sure I understand the thinking behind that, because I don't see how purple and brown clash on television. It just doesn't make any sense. But they want to turn the MCG into a purple haze. Well, they're going to do their very best, because everything that you've seen on television, these people are absolutely fired up to see their team win.
And Craig, what are their chances of winning this one? How do you rate the Fremantle Dockers coming into this game?
Well, you've got to after last week's effort, but I think we're losing sight of the fact, everyone's been talking really a lot about their defensive, their forward pressure and just their pressure in general, which is obviously their, a key element to winning the game. But you can't lose sight of the fact that the amount of players they've got in their side that can actually play the game. Tall midfielders that we spoke about before, and and we're talking about elite footballers here. The Mundys, Fife. Even Hill, Subin, Barlow, all these sort of players can flick through the midfield at any given time. But you've got a 208-centimetre ruckman who's going to give him first use of the ball. It's pretty significant. And as been spoken about just recently, he's just right on top of his game. He's a player that's had a lot of injuries, mainly feet injuries, through his career. But he seems to be well and truly above that. And just, he's taking marks around the ground. He's getting to contests. If he goes forward, he's got that ability to really stretch your back line. It's just, outside their key midfielders there, and really their class of the group, they've got a really balanced side. They've got players that have played in grand final. Well, Zach Dawson has anyway. So that's going to help him back there. I think Pearce has played in the grand final as well. These guys are hungry. We talked about in the rugby league section about the chance of making history. Well, it's really there for them to make their stamp, and that's going to drive them a long way. They seem like a very mentally balanced group, and it's going to be a lot closer than a lot of people think. If the pressure's there, the pressure's there. I think, in a grand final, pressure is significant from both sides. It's just the quality of, I reckon they match them in every way in the midfield. Freo, they match Hawthorn in every way. So it's going to be very entertaining. I hope the weather keeps off for it, though.
Clint, what do you think about them?
Oh, I think they're a huge, huge chance. Remember, this team hasn't fallen into the finals. They're in there today on their merits. They've beaten Geelong in Geelong, and then we saw last week. They're a massive show. As Jack said, very well balanced. If you could find one weakness, maybe is maybe around the Zach Dawson and a couple in their back half, but their forward pressure, their midfield pressure is as such. That ball comes in high more often than not. That makes it easier for their defenders to defend. No, I think they're right within a show. And as I said about our grand final, if they can be in it for as long as they can, if they're still in touch at three-quarter time, they're well on their way. I'm a huge fan of Fremantle. I think they can get the job done today.
Well, I was just sorry, Darren. I was just going to say I'm not the footy mind, the AFL mind that you guys are, but to my eyes, it sort of reminds me to the situation with Sydney last year, similar type of team that have the ability to upset Hawthorn and sort of rattle them a little bit and put them off their game. Do you agree with that sort of thing? Is that something that they can potentially do? Do they have the game that can unsettle Hawthorn?
Well, I think they'll just go out and play their game, and that is their game. They've got the serial pests. There's a couple of them in Crowley and Ballantyne, and they'll be at their best. But outside that, they go ahead and do their job. They upset the opposition, but it doesn't seem to upset their group. Their midfield are a really hard-running midfield. As you said, Ethan, they're tall, so, not only they are players that can get the ball through run, they can actually be targets around the ground that can outmark a player. So in that regard, they're going to pressure up really hard. But as I said before, it's a grand final. I think both sides will pressure up hard. Hawthorn will learn by last year's effort.
Yeah.
So they're going to be prepared for it, and it's been spoken about so much. But if they go out there with the mindset of, they're going to pressure us hard, they'll forget about their quality of footballers that can actually cause some damage. And, the likes of Pavlich, the way he's been playing over the last couple of weeks, really good. And, Chris Mayne, his forward pressure and his ability to kick goals. Like, their midfielders kick a lot of goals. So it's going to be interesting in that way.
Pavlich versus Lake is going to be a ripper today.
Yes.
That's going to be one of the contests you'd sit down in front of the TV to watch for sure.
Darren, who do you want to see stand up and have a big game for the Dockers?
Well, I'm actually, apart from what I want and what I think is going to be the Norm Smith medal are probably two different things, but I'm actually picking Luke Hodge to win the Norm Smith medal. I think Sam Mitchell, if Crowley plays on him, I think the two of them are going to negate one another in the middle. Although I tend to be thinking along the lines of Craig in that that's probably too easier pick in the middle of the ground. I don't think they'll probably line up that way. I would like to see, even though I'm not picking Freo to win, I'd love to see Pavlich pull in a best on ground performance. I think it would round out this great player's career. And he made it very, very clear in the news overnight and some stuff that I heard on the radio this morning that he never wanted to play for Freo. It was the last thing on his choice list as far as draft picks were concerned. He wanted to either play in South Australia or stay in Victoria. It didn't happen, and he stayed with this club all the way through. And I just think it'd be a great story for a champion player to actually round out his career with a premiership.
Yeah, I agree.
Any other big matchups that you're really looking forward to today, Craig?
Oh, obviously, the ruck situation is not really a matchup. It's going to hold a lot of bearing in the game. Sam Lowndes, how much influence he has, and we've spoken about the weather situation, whether this detracts from his involvement of the game, being such a tall bloke in the weather. Probably doesn't help him, but he'll still give him first use of the ball, which is pretty important. It's going to be interesting to see, as you said, Clint, that Lake will probably go to Pavlich, but it's going to be interesting to see because Lake's primarily played on the talls whenever he's had the opportunity. So if you've got two big talls down there, whether Lake goes to him and Gibson goes on to Pavlich, I don't know. It's all to be seen at 2:00, I suppose. But and one of them guys will always play third man up. They'll come off their player. They do a great job. And, the interesting one is to see if they do tag up on Birchall as well, because he just gives them so much drive from the back half. He's a prolific ball winner, and he uses the ball so well. So it'd be interesting to see if anyone does go to him. But if not, you might be able to act the other way and have a player that's offensive, whether a main goes to him, consistently puts the pressure, but also can be offensive as well. So these sort of things are going to be played out in, as you know, Clint, going through a grand final, the norm doesn't always have to be the norm.
No, and I wouldn't see Fremantle. Letting Josh Gibson go third man up too often. So I think you'll see the Fremantle forwards will try and separate themselves. Main might play on Gibson and just hit up, and Fremantle midfield will have to use him and try and turn him around and keep him away from a one-on-one Pavlich versus Lake. I don't think Josh Gibson will have it all his own way today. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. There'll be a chess game from the start. There might be plus ones behind the ball. Who knows what? So it'll be on for young and old come 2:30.
Darren, you were about to say something there?
Yeah, it's going to be on, isn't it? Look, I just think, Craig, do you think, looking at when the Freo defensive press is on and they're about to start running the ball out, do you think that Franklin at centre half forward, Roughead at full forward, and Hale in the pocket is a realistic lineup?
Oh yeah, because the beauty of Franklin, he can play as a wingman if he had to, so he can play high up the ground. Then you still got it's going to pan out in how the game's being played. If Hawthorn are getting good ball movement through the midfield and half back, and you've got three targets to hit to, and they're all leading hard, it's going to be a huge positive for him. In the case of if it gets wet, Franklin plays up high up the ground. He's still got league speed against whoever he drags up with him, and you still have your two talls there. And if that's the case, Hale and probably Bailey will just rotate off the bench if it gets wet. Like, I don't think it's the thing is, we forget about Franklin as much as he's 6'6". He can run like a hare, so he can play an alternative role, and he's pretty strong over the ball. So, in that regard, that doesn't worry him about having so many tools up there.
We take a quick look at the Dockers lineup now. In the back line, Michael Johnson, Zach Dawson, Paul Duffield. Half-back, Lee Spur, Luke McFarlane, Daniel Pearce. In the centres, David Mundy, Ryan Crowley and Mazungu. Half-forward, Cameron Sutcliffe, Chris May, Nathan Fife. Forward line, Zach Clark, Matthew Pavlich is there too, Michael Walters. Followers are Aaron Sandilands, the big unit, Matt DeBoer and Stephen Hill, the interchange, Hayden Ballantyne, Nick Subban, Lockie Neal and Michael Barlow. Guys, that's the Freo Dockers. Before we take a break, we'll come back after the break and we'll give our tips for the grand final. But one other pretty big event in the AFL happened during the week, of course, the Brownlow medal. Yeah. Mr. Gary Ablett picking up his second Brownlow, the 14th player to win multiple medals and just the 5th to do it at 2 different clubs. Picked up 3 votes in the final game of the season to go past Geelong's Joel Selwood to pick it up. We were talking about it even a week ago. He was picking up awards left, right and centre, this bloke. What else is there left to say about a guy now with his second Brownlow?
Oh, look, you can't. He's just, it's indescribable what he's actually achieved. But I think, you look at it and he was so much of a red-hot favourite to win it and get in by a vote. It's probably, you look at it and say, was that just or not just? But then again, it's an indicator of Joel Selwood and Swan for the year they've had. It's probably went underneath the radar because there was so much publicity about Gary Ablett and being so successful. But, if he can go on and lead the Suns into a finals series, which they're pretty much on target, I think, he's really achieved everything there is to achieve.
Guys, any other words on that, Darren? Any other words on Gary Ablett before we head to the break?
No, I think Bruce McAvaney said it brilliantly at the end. He said, the Ablett family, Matthews and Carey, doesn't get any better than that in the modern era. And I think that's the way it works. I also think Ablett should have been going for his 4th Brownlow.
Yeah, my feeling is the only thing left to do is put him to get to the end of this and say he's the best Ablett in the family. You older guys probably saw a lot more of Gary Senior than I did, but this guy's amazing what he's been able to do, coming out of Geelong and up to the Gold Coast as a number 1 man. And I also think that as he gets older into his career, he'll go to the forward pocket and probably win a Coleman.
Yep.
We'll go to a break here on SportzScene. We'll come back. We'll wrap up the whole show with some tips and some predictions for the grand finals coming up this weekend. Stay with us. Now, guys, we've been talking plenty of AFL grand final talk for the last 45 minutes or so. Let's get some tips now. Darren Madigan, I'll start with you. Give us a tip for the grand final and who you think's going to take home the Norm Smith.
Yeah, Hawthorn in a close one and Luke Hodge to win the Norm Smith.
Why Hawthorn, mate?
I just think they're a more balanced side. We've got this wonderful defensive press that Freo have got, but I think when you take a look at what Hawthorn are capable, and they're also at full strength, and that's the big thing. They're at full strength. Everybody's on deck. I just think they'll go out there and blast them.
Clint, what are your thoughts, mate? Grand final, who wins and why, and who wins the Norm Smith?
I think with the weather, I'm going to say Fremantle under 2 goals and Fife for the Norm Smith. It'd be great to see a young guy to get the job done today. But I just think that the pressure we've seen last week against Sydney, they bring that today. They're in the game at 3/4 time. I think they can get the job done. And one more thing, Lee Spur, ex-Queensland boy from Morningside, playing in his first grand final today. So good luck to him.
Sensational.
Best of luck to him. Craig Crowley, same question, mate. Who wins and why, and who wins the Norm Smith?
I reckon Hawthorn win, and purely and simply, you've got 2 very evenly balanced sides, but I think Hawthorn have got way too much to lose. In regards to talking about today, Freo have already won as far as I'm concerned. They've made a grand final. They've been competitive all year. They're away and running at the moment. They've got a young list that's going to go a long way. And for that reason, I don't think it'll be an added pressure to Hawthorn. I think that'll give them the grit they need. And I reckon Grant Birchall off halfback flank will give them really good service. He's going to be hard to match up on, and if they do match up on him, they lose a forward. So I think he'll be the one who will be collecting most of the possessions.
Ethan James, I'll ask you now for the Intrust Super Cup Grand Final taking place tomorrow afternoon, mate. Who wins? Who wins man of the match?
Yeah, everyone sort of knows that my allegiances lie by now, so I'm going to tip the East Tigers to get home there. I think they've developed a really sort of tough mental attitude over the past sort of 2 months. They're a really tight squad, and I think they've just got a little bit too much skill there in their backs. In terms of man of the match, I'm going to say Tommy Butterfield at hooker. He's been a linchpin of the way they've been playing, and it's going to be a fairly sort of torrid match in the forwards, and he'll get through 1 million tackles and hold his own there. So I think Tommy Butterfield for man of the match.
I think my tip will be the same. I'll lean towards the East Tigers. I think they've got too many points in them. I think the forwards will aim up. I think Mitch Garbutt, the front row, will come home with the man of the match. Guys, it's been a massive show here on SportzScene today. Clint, thank you very much for being with us on the phone for such a long time today. Darren Madigan, thanks as always. Craig Crowley, Ethan James. We'll be back next week. Another big show planned for the NRL Grand Final. Stay with us here on 101 FM.